Hi, everyone. It's Tom from the Academy for Professional Painting Contractors. I'm excited to be kicking off a new podcast video series, Ladder to Legacy, being facilitated by my co-host, none other than APPC's Chief Operating Officer, Tara Riley. Welcome, Tara.
Thanks, Tom.
On today's episode, we're featuring two awesome people with an amazing origin story based on a lifelong friendship. These two co-owners met in third grade, became friends, and have remained best friends ever since. They started in the painting business in 1997, right out of high school, and in 2008 launched Absolute Painting in Lawrence, Kansas. They've really built their business. They've worked hard over the past 17 years. In 2023, they grew their revenues to just over 900,000. And then in 2024, they scaled the business to 1.7 million. I'm telling you, growing your business by 800,000 or 87% in 1 year is absolutely amazing. But not only did they do that, they also improved their gross margin to 50.6%, which is close to a 10-point improvement from 2023. Please join me in welcoming the owners of Absolute Painting, Michael Balding and Greg Collins. Welcome to Ladders to Legacy.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
We're really excited to have you guys join Ladders to Legacy today, and Tara's going to be taking you through the journey to tell your stories. Thanks again for joining us, and look forward to sharing this with the rest of the members. Tara?
Absolutely. Thanks, Tom, and thank you, Mike and Greg, for joining us. You know, this Ladders to Legacy concept really is about talking about how we started. You know, so many people started on the job site. They started working in the business and have grown and really transformed the business to a place where you're scaling and you're hopefully building a legacy. So that's the story we're really trying to tell here. So always is good to start with the beginning. I'd love to just, hear a little bit how did you two decide to get into the painting business?
Yeah, great question. And I don't know that anybody decides to get into the painting business. I think we had a friend that had a painting company and offered us some work. I started just with this company, actually hadn't graduated high school and worked some Saturdays, and then graduated, went full time. Greg came on the team, immediately outshined me as a better painter and faster production worker. And so we just kind of fell into it. I haven't met a person who, is eating their bowl of cereal and looks up and says, "Dad, I want to be a painter when I grow up." Nevertheless, here we are.
Yeah. So there was some point when you guys were out there painting that you decided to go and start a painting on your own, right? You separated from that company and became a team. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes. Really, it was that was not an intentional decision. We were working for another company doing a lot of new construction painting, and everybody knows what happened to new construction painting around 2007, 2008. We were doing a lot of work around a military base. We were doing a lot of the housing that was being put up to service that base, and then the military decided not to staff that base. So there were entire streets that were built that we were supposed to paint houses on that never got built. So we went from being super busy to having almost nothing to do. And so we, with the blessing of the friend that we had worked for those years, struck on our own. And what is it you say, Greg? The threat of
with the threat of homelessness and starvation, that pushed us forward, because I had a 6-month-old and he had a 9-month-old and a toddler, and we didn't know how to do anything else. So it was kind of, when that business was drying up, it's like, well, dude, I don't know how to do anything else.
Yep. So, and we'd worked together on a crew for a long time, and learned to leverage each other's skills. Greg's a much better and faster painter than I am, but I have a knack for sequencing work and making sure that everything runs on time and runs smooth.
The brainy things.
Yeah. So we made a really good team, and we thought, well, since we know how to paint houses, we can run a painting business.
There you go. And there's the pivot, right? So now you get yourself into running a painting business. Tell me a little bit just about, obviously, you've grown a lot in the last couple of years, but in the early years, you pretty much just were working a job, basically. Would that be right? Or you're self-employed, you like to say?
Yeah, more or less. The interesting thing about being your own boss is if you're not running your business right, nobody's going to call you and complain. Nobody's going to tell you that your profit margins are too low or you're not charging enough or uh, any of that stuff. We would get in the van and go to work. And so over the first several years, we actually, we owned a job. We didn't make all that much money. We'd have good months and bad months. And everybody who's been on the ladder knows that you'll make a lot of money on one job and then you'll lose money on the next job. And there were months we weren't able to really pay ourselves much. There were times we took jobs and gave a price that was our rent for the end of the month because we knew we just had to do it. So that was our pricing structure for a while was, what are our bills and what do we need to do to meet them? And so I think about 3 or 4 years in, we realized that being good painters didn't mean that we could run a painting business. So we had to start working on becoming business owners.
Yeah, that answers the question. So did that mindset shift happen for you sort of overnight, or was it something that was more of a slow burn? I mean, how did that? When did you finally pull the trigger and say we got to make a change?
Yeah, I don't know that. I don't know that we made any decisions about that fast or pivoted quickly on anything. It started to, honestly, we would drive around in the van and say, what would it be like to own a painting business and not actually be the ones painting all the time? And we had no idea what that would feel like or what it would look like
or how to get there.
So we had tried a couple of times, like, hey, let's advertise with Yellow Pages. Let's try and do this. I started taking a couple hours a week to try and grow the business, but I had no idea what I was doing. So nothing ever really worked. And so around 2016, 2015, 2016, we've been 7 or 8 years in. I remember looking at Greg and saying, we need somebody that can just spoon feed us how to run a painting business because I'm not an unintelligent person and we've been trying to do this off and on for 4 years and we're not getting it. We had a decent year in 2015 and then we had that dreaded time where the phone stops ringing and your big account suddenly doesn't need you for a while and you have nothing to do for a month and you feel like, everything is going to fall apart. So that was probably that spoon feeding moment. We started looking for resources, and that is where we found the Painters Academy.
Awesome. Yeah. And so what happened? So you signed up with Brandon at that point, and what happened from there?
Yeah. So I love to tell this story. Brandon hates when I tell this story, but I love it. We had our discovery call with him, and he's asking all the questions. Now, do you guys keep in touch with your past customers? Are you doing that? I'm like, no. And he, asked the list of 5 or 6 things that you need to be doing, and we said no to all of them. And then I said, but I know we should be doing stuff like this. We're just not. And he's like, well, see, there's a difference between being ignorant, but if you're supposed to be doing something and you're not, that's kind of stupid, isn't it? And I put my hand over the phone and looked at Greg. We were sitting in our work van in his driveway. I said, we're hiring him because he will tell us the bald truth, and that's what we need to have.
Yep.
And so we started working with Brandon. We got into the group, started working on it, and it was going to be me doing all that. Greg was just going to keep painting because he was a great painter. And so I'll let him tell what happened in his life that caused a huge shift. And I will preface that with saying we started working with Brandon in the Platinum coaching group. And I think this happened between our first and second phone call. So I'll let Greg tell that side.
So we started working with Brandon in the summer, that early summer-ish, and I'd had several acute injuries and some repetitive stress injuries. Anybody that's spent a lot of time on the ladder knows how that goes. So I had some pretty wicked tennis elbow, and I was kind of to the point by like July of 16, I was pretty much living on a leave, like wrapping everything up, and I could barely button my pants in the morning, but I would just wrap everything up and go to work. And one day I called Mike. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I just can't. I have to do something else. And so when we talked to Brandon, he's like, well, guys, you're just going to have to switch seats. And so I jumped in. Mike went back out into the field, and I jumped into the office thing right about the Mod 3, I think it is, with the newsletter. I was like, ooh, this is great. I've always wanted to do this kind of stuff. And then we got to do the realtor thing, and that was hard for me. Have an intense dislike bordering on phobia about talking on the phone with people. And so, the last thing I ever wanted to do was be in sales. And I kind of found myself there. And by then, Mike and I both had 3 kids. We had mortgages, and we're looking at like, how are we going to, keep this stuff going? And so it was really, I had some moments after my calls with Brandon sometimes where I'd kind of have Mike talk me off the ledge, because like, man, I don't think I can do this, And so it's great to have somebody in your corner, to encourage you along.
Yep, and I'm slinging pain. I'm on the phone with him, and I'm telling him he can do it, and then I'm like moving at half speed of what Greg could do in the field, and it feels like everything's going to fall apart. So to anybody listening to this, and you feel afraid that things aren't going to work out, that's normal. You're going to feel it. It's pushing through that. And without having a coach that could have helped us put this together, I don't know that we would have come up with the right answers and been able to pivot like that. And so with that one-on-one help, by the spring of the following year, Greg and I were both out of the field. We were in that place now where we didn't have to do the painting anymore. So I ran production, Greg started doing sales, and away we went.
Yeah. And that's where you start to scale, right? When you hired your first employees, and I'm assuming those first employees were painters. And so how many painters did you build that first year? I mean, Mike, what was your strategy for really getting yourself out of the field?
Yeah, our strategy, we didn't have one. We just did whatever Brandon told us to do.
We advertised on Craigslist, and I interviewed a bunch of painters while Mike was still out there painting. March, so it was August of 2016 when I stopped painting and kind of got into the estimating seat. And by March, we had 6 painters. And
I think we had 6 or 7 when we went to the inaugural Painting Profit Summit. And it was humbling, because when you're able to get out of the field, you feel like you've made it. Like you feel like you've arrived, and you get really proud of what you've done, and because it is really hard. And to get to that point, and then we got into a room full of people, and I remember talking to one of the guys, young kid, probably 12 years younger than me, just sucking on a beer over in the corner. He's like, "So how many painters you got?" I'm like, "Oh, we have 6 or 7 this year. It's awesome. Things are going great." I went, "How about you?" And he's like, "Oh, we have about 60. And it was that moment that was like, I'm looking around like, wow, we're not like the muscly, powerful guys that we thought we were. Right. And so I shifted from proud Mike to student Mike. I was going to try and learn everything I could from the people that were going ahead of us. And that's why we're all in this group, and that's why we're here, just to learn.
Right. So let's step forward. Now you're, I think how long was it before you grew, you think about 6 painters. When did you get to larger than that? Or when did you hire your first non-painter, like an office, like an administrative person?
Yeah, great question. In 2017 was when things really took off. And so we ended up growing in 2018 or 19. We did 825 that year, and felt like 2019, we felt like we were on top of the world. And so then, and that was just Greg doing sales. I was running production and everything else, and keeping the painters busy. We would still have to do layoffs in the winter, which was terrible. And although we were running the business, we weren't super profitable. We weren't making it, it wasn't like we were, living the lifestyles of the rich and famous. We were making more income than we were before, but, we weren't lighting the world on fire. We got the business tuned in where we could work 30 hours a week, maybe, if we wanted to. And so it was definitely a better lifestyle than being on the ladder. Then the pandemic hit, and I probably made the biggest mistake that we ever could have made. And that was, we took our foot off the gas and coasted through it, because we were uncertain and we were afraid of what's going to happen. Looking back now, that was the time to grab market share. Marketing was cheap. You could, work was just, coming out of your ears. That would have been the time to scale. And we didn't have that mindset. Greg went and did something else, did another job. So the business was in effect a part-time job for us. And I went and did something else too. So long story short, for 2021, 22, we kind of coasted. And we stayed in that $750,000 range.
Coasting downhill.
Yeah, and what we did was our expenses went up, but we didn't raise our prices because we didn't know that we were supposed to do that. And so we weren't working one-on-one with a coach at that point, because by then we were smart enough to have figured it all out. And I hope you're seeing a pattern here. So always stay humble and learn from everybody you can. And so, and that led us into 2023, was when we both got out of our other gigs and decided now we need to really scale. Let's take this business and make it something, because we still have a job. Like, we're not painting now, but we still have a job. And so it was time to grow and build it and make it something valuable, so that when it came time to retire, we would have something either that we could sell or pass on to our family as a legacy.
And that's about when we hired our first non-painting kind of employees.
Yep, 2023 we hired an admin person. That was our first hire. And I wasn't even going to do that. It's funny because people around you will help you. I was working from home and had started doing some marketing that was taking off and working. And I couldn't get anything done because I was spending all my time on the phone booking appointments and talking to customers. And I got off the phone and I'm like, sheesh. And my wife said, you need to hire somebody to answer the phones for you. And so that was our first hire. And it was scary. It was intimidating. And I was afraid it wasn't going to work out. And man, how are we going to afford to pay this person $15 an hour to answer the phones? That's $600 a week. That's $2,400 a month. That's all. How are we going to do this? But it was sink or swim time.
So what was the result once you hired that administrative person? What did you discover?
The sun broke through the clouds. The bluebirds sang sweeter, because I didn't have to answer that phone anymore. And I had somebody that would actually keep better track of the details and do the administrative stuff. We were way better at it than I was. I was actually not very, my strong suit is not sitting in front of a spreadsheet and entering numbers all day. I love data. I love to analyze it. I love to make decisions on it, but don't sit me in front of the computer and make me enter it all in. It's just probably not going to get done. And so once we hired Jaden and she started doing all that stuff, that combination really freed up my time. And then the time that I could spend growing the business and scaling, that was about the time that we started working in the Platinum group again. I started working with you, Tara, as our Platinum coach. So solved our first real bottleneck. I wanted to talk to you about marketing, because that was my passion right then. And you said, forget marketing. If you're 3 weeks out on appointments, you need more sales. So without that leadership, even then, like, we wouldn't have been able to scale and grow. And so that's really the answer, is being able to see what's coming ahead and moving the pieces around on the larger scale.
Yeah, I love that story. It was fun. You're sitting there, we need to do more marketing. And I'm looking at your numbers. It's like, oh no, I think you need to, and then that is really what takes scaling. It's identifying bottlenecks and then hiring. You need more capacity, right?
That's what you asked. What's your cancel rate? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, how many appointments are canceling? I was like, well, they're canceling, but we can just find another appointment to fill. And you're like, Mike, you don't get it. Like, once you lose that opportunity,
It's lost.
It's gone. And so you made me add it up. You're like, look through your stuff. And I was like, well, we had like 30 cancellations. You're like, okay, 30 cancellations, your closing rate, you gave me the dollar amount of what it cost our company. And I was like, we can't afford to not hire a salesperson.
Right. Yeah.
So.
But that's the art truly of scaling. Now, I think for the listeners, tell us, okay, where are you at now? How many overhead staff do you have?
And gobs and gobs. Yeah. We have, we have 2 full-time we call them project consultants, 2 full-time project consultants. Plus, we have increased demand. So Greg and I kind of tag team. Well, I'm handling the sales overflow now. We have 2 project managers. Greg has pivoted from sales into project management, and he's immediately just
the sun broke through the clouds.
The bluebirds were singing. So, right person in the right seat. That's probably a story for another day, but that's super critical. Greg did the same thing in sales that he did in painting. He got up every day. He just wrapped up his personality and his aversion to meeting new people and took a bunch of mental leave and just went and gutted it out for years and years and years. And now he's in a position where like he's able to actually see like the value and the results that he's providing. So I mean, he's overseeing production of almost half of our total input now, which is awesome. And I'm barely involved, which is good for me because I'm terrible at stuff like that. So we have two. We're hiring a part-time project consultant, so that'll be 2.5 of those. We have 2 project managers. We have a full-time admin person, and then I'm the general manager. And we're overseeing between our W-2s and subcontractors anywhere from 25 to 28 painters right now.
We also have the door-to-door team.
And yes, can't forget that we have 4 guys part-time on our door-to-door team.
There you go. Just right quick, what do you think? You're on track for revenue this year. What do you think you're going to finish the year at for this year?
Yeah, I think, when you and I did our business planning, we went from 900 to almost 1.8, 1.7 something. We set our sights on 2.75, and at our mid-year review, we decided that we could outperform those numbers. So we're setting our target at 3 million this year.
Excellent.
With maintaining a 50% gross profit.
I think that's one of the things that I've seen over the years in the painting industry is when you decide to scale, the ability to scale rapidly is really there if you have all the pieces in place. And
yep.
I think
if you're willing to defer more profit and plow that profit back into your next hire, and know that once you get your team set up and in place, that's where the reward really is.
Yeah. So you guys talked about creating a legacy. And just really quick, for you guys, what does legacy mean to you? I mean, for the future?
Yes. I think I'll let Greg answer that question first, and then I'll give my 2 cents. See, this is what happens. I talk all the time, and then he just sits there quietly.
And I'm good with that, actually. It is kind of cool. I mentioned earlier that Mike had we had kids in diapers and pull-ups when we started this company. And Mike's sons are grown and they work on the production team. His daughter worked part-time as Jaden's assistant in the office. And
I'm trying to recruit one of your sons to join the door-to-door team.
My oldest is he's getting ready to be a senior this year, and he really desperately wants to be a project consultant. So we're trying to get him doing door-to-door. So my other son Levi, he told me, it's like we've grown up listening to all these tales of you guys, riding around in the dirty van, eating junk food and listening to music and painting houses and then growing it into something where now you're hanging out at the office eating junk food and goofing off and stuff. And there's time for that here and there. So it's like already there's kind of this sense of like, I want to do something like that, or I want to be part of that. And so when I was growing up, my dad just worked a punch clock, work a day job, and that's totally cool. And he worked really hard. He stuck it out, even though he hated it. You could see where I get it. And he told me, I want you to grow up and be the guy that sits behind the desk and tells people like me what to do. And, now I am.
There you are.
Yep. And on my side, one of the things that Brandon said early on really stuck out. He said, I work with painting contractors because I've seen too many painting businesses. They get too old and too worn out to paint, and they have no value in their business. They've worked in it their whole lives, and the value of their business is used tools and a broke down van.
And a garage sale.
And so we didn't want to do that. So we are working on something that is going to have value beyond us. And that's probably a big mindset shift is the business is a separate entity and we're a part of it, but it's not us. Because if the business is you and it hangs on you, it will never grow past you. And so the legacy that I think we're building is something that provides that experience that we have developed and grown, but we don't have to be the ones giving that experience all the time. And we've built a team that can do those things and we can make the decision when the time comes to sell the business for a profit, which would be like a retirement, or pass it on to our kids if they express an interest in wanting to take over someday, or put our wonderful employees in an equity position and elevate their lives.
Absolutely. Those are the successful, as we call them, the successful exit strategies for sure. What you're giving your kids, Greg, I had the same thing. My parents both were, my mom was a teacher. My dad worked in a bank. I wasn't exposed to business as a young child. I didn't know what business was until I really started working in businesses and realizing that the greatest way to build wealth in this country is to own a business. And you guys, kudos for what you've done. It's really an amazing journey. Really like to just kind of say, hey, kind of wrapping this up a little bit, but talking about what's one piece of advice you would give to people starting on this journey, painters that are either starting out or they're thinking about trying to follow in your footsteps and grow and scale the business?
It's it makes me think of something that Brandon used to say. I remember saying all the time was it's dressed in overalls and it looks like work, and it's like there's this, as you transition off of the ladder and off the tools, you feel like you're going on vacation. It feels like you're not working, and it's actually just different. It's a different kind of work, and so it's a whole bunch more stuff to learn, and it's not always easy, but nothing that's really worthwhile ever is.
Yep. And I would say that the biggest roadblock that anybody faces in growing their business, it's not work ethic, because if you have built your business to the point that you realize it's valuable and you can grow it, you're a hard worker, because lazy people aren't going to survive painting houses. It's not going to happen. So the biggest roadblock isn't that, it's ignorance. You don't know what you don't know. And so the things that have made us successful is putting us in places to learn. And the enemy of overcoming ignorance is pride. You're not willing to listen to somebody else and receive that. So the mindset shift that you have to have if you're going to grow your business is you don't know everything. There are people that can help you. And if you will humble down a little bit and listen, have a little bit of faith in what they say and make some application to things, it will change, and it will often change faster and in more powerful ways than you could think or imagine.
Absolutely.
That's a great story. Tara, thanks for facilitating it. Greg and Mike, I got to tell you, I'm so proud of just listening to your story. I mean, I look at you guys, you didn't settle. You had some success, but you just didn't settle. You continued to learn and grow, and wow, look where you're at today. I just like to close by asking you one question. And again, thank you for coming on today. If your story was somehow put on a mural, what would the caption on that mural say?
Yeah, well, I'm going to steal this because we went and looked at a job together at a doctor's office or a dentist office or something, and this mural is kind of the theme of Greg and I's journey. It says, "We didn't do this because it was easy. We did this because we thought it would be easy."
That's awesome.
Love it.
All right, guys, thanks.
Yep. Thank you.